Welcome to the Inspired Path with Lisa Heidle. I'm so glad you're here with us today. This episode is a celebration of women, women who choose to step into their truth, listen to their inner wisdom, and walk boldly on the paths meant just for them. I'm honored to be joined by two incredible women whose work embodies this mission, Olive Evans and Jamie Bullock. Olive and Jamie are deeply committed to supporting other women in finding their voices, building community, and embracing the courage to follow their own unique paths. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. This is The Inspired Path, and I am Lisa Heidle, and I'm here with two amazing women today, and we are going to be talking about unlocking the female voice, unmuting it, and we're going to be talking about the power in community. And I think those two things go hand in hand very nicely.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation. My name is Jamie Bullock. I reside right now in Ohio with my husband and my 5-year-old. I am a producer, mom. I produced for a long time in Los Angeles and built a really great community there. And since I've had my child, I had her in the pandemic, I have found kind of this new healing path of becoming Reiki certified and meditation. And so that's what I'm doing right now, is creating retreats and community gatherings that bring all these things together: healing, organizations, activism, and just really people being able to see themselves in each other.
What is the name of what you offer?
I'm the founder of Pisces Moon Healing. So through Pisces Moon Healing, I do Reiki, and I do meditation with individuals. And then I just created this community gathering event called WTF is happening, but it's actually Wellness, Transformation, and Freedom. So there's a little hook there. And so through Pisces Moon Healing, I co-host a rest retreat with a good friend, Angela, who does meditation and yoga.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Olive, can you introduce yourself for us?
That's great, Jamie. I'm Olive Evans, and I'm a mother of two little girls, ages 5 and 7, in Atlanta, Georgia. And I work as a somatic energy guide and hypnotherapist, guiding high impact women into clarity and vitality and purpose through those practices, and also through shared wisdom and sacred community that supports and uplifts one another. So I've been doing this work, gosh, 3 years now actively, but it's been a lifetime of training in yoga and Tibetan Buddhism and expanded states of awareness. Most recently accessed through hypnotherapy, which I've been finding is incredibly exciting for my clients, for unlocking and unblocking and really accelerating transformation.
You both went on a shared path here of healing and offering your gifts and your services to the world. What took you there? What took you to the path? And I'm very curious, your own journeys with this. Olive?
Oh my goodness. And we could take it back to the womb. I mean, I feel like let me see where we could go here. This path, okay, I'll say this. Jamie, you're a projector, is that right? Do I remember
Yep.
that correctly?
Yep.
I was fortunate enough at a very young age to have experiences that maybe answered some of life's bigger questions than I even knew to ask at the time. I've been a person that has always felt the world first. You know, you're talking about, Lisa, your body feeling things. And I think that's such an important point, because I find that many of us are trained to operate with maybe this much of our awareness of our entire being, this being the mind and the body and emotion. But there's a larger awareness that we can learn to cultivate and become sensitive to. And I think that larger awareness also starts to speak to the energetic awareness of emotions moving through the body. spiritual awareness, soul awareness, and we can kind of have these larger experiences as we begin to get quiet and cultivate that. For myself, I was born this way. I just knew the connection that I had to nature, the connection that I had to others, nonverbal connections, and was fortunate also over time to have um, parents, my mother that was a yogi as well and was always working with the body and emotion and energy. Fortunate enough to come across Buddhism at a really, really young age, opening up and expanding my spiritual awareness, giving myself some vocabulary around that beyond what was around at the time. And learned over time that this is who I am, and also learned that people were always sort of coming to me for advice and guidance, and that I felt really good and natural in that space. And when I ended my marriage, I had this moment of awakening. It was really radical, where I decided that for myself, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that I was going to listen to my intuition and to my spirit and to my soul's purpose. And it has been a continuation of faith and footwork ever since then to walk this path of guidance, of connecting women together in community, of allowing women the opportunity to expand their awareness, to reconnect with themselves. It's a path that I've walked and that I'm so grateful to be offering to others, and to witness transformation in women is incredibly humbling. And it really, when I think about the state of the world and really pay attention to what's going on, we can all become so overwhelmed with everything that's happening that I find a lot of solace in the work that I'm doing. I just listened to a little bit of an interview with Jane Goodall that's just come out, and she was talking about how important it is for us in these times of what feel dark to hold hope, to hold hope. And as a mother of two young girls, this is the work that gives me hope. I feel completely lit up by it. So that's how I know in my body that this is my path.
Yeah. I first have to say, Olive, the women that are in the get to be with you in person, you just come across, I can't imagine you in person. Like your energy on even just on this screen is so gorgeous. And just thank you. Thank you for choosing this path. I think I've always been a seeker, like seeking these bigger ideas, bigger ideals, and now, yeah, realizing I'm a projector in human design, that I always wanted to know things, but then didn't stick with one thing. And I used to feel insecure about that. Like, just stick with one thing. Like, what's wrong with you? And now I realize it was, no, I'm trying to kind of figure out how things can be done a little differently, and taking a lot of all my experiences and then creating something. And that's where I feel I am right now. But what really kickstarted it was having a baby in the pandemic, where I looked around all by myself, put, my past life blown up and we went through 4 years of infertility. So knowing that we wanted this baby so badly, and all that we went through to get her here, and then suddenly with her here and looking around and saying, I'm all alone. This is horrible. Why is this so hard? Where is my village? Who got rid of the village? I mean, we know who got rid of the village, but but like, where's the village? Where are my elders? Where are these people that I can share stuff with? And then I just went on that path, and you really want to create spaces where women, especially going through infertility, can feel supported, because we know that happens, that's going on way more than people talk about, because you don't talk about it, because you look around and everyone's having babies. And so then having a child by myself, without friends, without community, without family, I was like, then I guess I have to create it. And wanting to go down this healing path that then has opened my world again into community healing, community gatherings, and just trying to bring joy into the world right now too. And hope. We can't fix everything, but we can be the change we want to see in the world. And we can be that for our children and our daughters. I have a fun, sweet story about Jane Goodall. Right, we're animal lovers in this house, and we have that book series, Little People, Big Dreams. And Jane was one of the first ones my daughter got. And when she died the other day, I picked Brea up from school and I said, "Hey, babe, I have really sad news. Jane Goodall died." And she took a breath and she said, "Oh, okay. Well, now we just have to be Jane." Like, we have to take care of the animals. And I was like, oh.
Oh gosh. Thank you for sharing that. That is, yes, now we all need to be Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I came to here. And I'm the happiest in this. I feel like I'm really using my gifts and talents in service right now. And that's all I want to do and continue to do.
Women in this culture today have never had a larger platform to communicate. We have podcasts, we have video casts, we have blogs and vlogs, and we have, conscious collectives. And the female voices never had a wider reach than it does today. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, in history, I think this is historic for the female, the divine feminine, if you will. The author, Bell Hooks, author and activist, she wrote, "I am often struck by the dangerous narcissism fostered by spiritual rhetoric that pays so much attention to individual self-improvement and so little to the practice of love within the context of community." We're pulling people together through our voice. And I would love to get your insights as two people who run community collectives and community workshops, how you are guiding the female within these workshops. So, Olive, can you share your thoughts on this?
So many thoughts. Those are such beautiful insights. The first thing I really thought about in that quote from Bell Hooks was one of the Tibetan Buddhist practices of Tonglen, where in this practice, you sit with an experience that's arising, an emotional experience. Let's say it's grief. And as you sit with the feeling of grief and allow yourself to become closer to it, you inhale into the grief in the body. And as you exhale, you offer compassion and love to all of those that are experiencing grief in the world. And so in this very balanced way, you're stepping out of the narcissism of personal development that's so rampant in the spiritual space and allowing for a larger experience of connectivity, which in and of itself can be very healing for the personal experience. And so the question being, how do we lead community with women? I feel very strongly about one aspect of that, and that is that I believe that women have a tremendous amount of wisdom, and that the key is to really allow them to unlock their connection to that wisdom. And so community with women, I think, can look a little bit different than maybe it does in other ideas of community that we might have, in that I try to really facilitate community that allows for shared wisdom to come through. So rather than being at the top or even giving topics sometimes or guiding from this top-down approach, creating and nurturing and fostering the ability to share and even enliven and allow for a community to organically grow on what could be considered maybe a more horizontal plane or design.
So the idea that you allow something to grow organically, Olive, without directing it, that this is the way things are supposed to happen, right? This is how things are supposed to go. And when it doesn't, someone must be punished.
Yeah, I think what that does when we look at that top-down system is it cultivates a situation or a system where we outsource our own authority and our own power. And so much of the work is coming back into and recalibrating with our own wisdom. And within that group of women, we know what we need often. It's amazing when we all get together and begin to talk. It's amazing the dynamic that happens. It's amazing the sharing and the space. And we don't need so much of the top down. I think I heard a beautiful definition of what leadership and power actually could be. And it was weaving in a multiplicity of viewpoints into a focal center, that's really the role of the leader in those spaces. And so really holding the space for all allows that system and that community to be so much more alive. It's a living, breathing thing, and it's answering to the current need and what's present in the moment. I don't know. What do you think, Jamie?
I mean, look, what I want to be in some of your circles, Olive, because it does feel like when we give people, especially women, the space to express themselves, you know, to and a real listening to what they want to share without all these structures around it. We know our voices are powerful. We know that the minute we are born, and growing up, we are just told that your voice has to sound a certain way. It has to sound soft. It has to sound pretty. It has to sound, I mean, you know, voice and everything else. But we know what we're capable of. And I think we just need the space and the opportunities to be in community with other people who want to hear what we have to say. And I do think there's also, we've been pitted against each other, and it's not real. I mean, I would put you two on a pedestal before anybody else because we need each other. And I think in the spaces that I've been fortunate to help create, it really is that true listening, the true seeing. And as a producer, look, a lot of times I am kind of, there is this hierarchy, you know, this way of being. And I've just seen incredible outcomes when I look at everyone and we're all equal, because we're all sharing something. We're all sharing our gifts and talents. And that's something that I've really loved being able to do as a producer, is let me handle all the stuff that you don't want to handle, and let me give you on a platter what you need to do your job, to share your gifts and talents. And I think we just need more spaces like that. We need more spaces that honor who we are and honor our voices. And that's why, again, community, being in community is so important.
I find that myself and other people that I've spoken with, our natural tendency when we are struggling or wounded, going through a heartbreak or loss, is to withdraw from community, out of, to make ourselves more pleasing, right? We go like a wounded animal, we crawl into a hole, and with the belief that, well, I don't want to burden people. I don't, I have to first fix me before I am able to join our community. And I don't know where this started. I'm curious about your thoughts on this and what your experience is with this and how we can stop doing this, because we can heal in community and we can heal stronger. We can come out stronger when we're not just trying to do all the heavy lifting on our own. So I'm going to let the two of you speak on this. Olive, do you have thoughts?
I think that's such a beautiful point. So many thoughts again. So a community is a reflection of the individual and the health of the individual often. When we tend to withdraw, I think that speaks to a larger epidemic in our Western culture of how we, in particular, handle what may be felt as difficult emotions or experiences. In that so much of this wellness space is oriented towards regulation to the point of bypassing our experience, and that the harder ask and the more transformational dynamic is actually in learning how to get closer to the more difficult experiences that we have in our lives. And it's only through embracing the whole of our experience and the whole of our emotion that we learn to befriend ourselves fully and come into true regulation and capacity and expand our capacity to handle the whole of our being and the whole of our experience. There is inherent, I think, in capitalism and the West and even Christianity, our culture, this underlying unconscious construct that we are perhaps owed a good, happy life by virtue of being right with God or alive, right? Inherent in the idea of sin, even. If we work hard enough, we're going to get the thing. And I don't think that that's necessarily the case. And it's not the case in other cultures, that we are here to alchemize the life that we receive. And we alchemize that life by embracing the whole of the experience. And that's a practice. And it's daunting. It sounds very simple, but it's really hard. And I think that translates to community as well. I think the more that we individually practice learning how to be with the reality of the experience, which is a hard ask. I'm not saying this is easy. The more that we're able to do that, the more that we can sit in greater inner peace and also allow ourselves to be seen fully. We have to extend that love, that acceptance, and that presence to ourselves before we can really feel safe enough to extend that to others or to hold that for others.
Do you find people saying what I said earlier, that, well, I didn't feel like I should talk to someone about this. I didn't want to unload. I didn't want to unburden. But do you find that the more they're doing it, the more they're able to connect with their own true self?
Absolutely. And I think that that's an inherent component of women's community in particular.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
operating within a system that is not made for us and not built by us. And it is not until we step into women's space that we understand those unconscious constructs that we've been given. And it is not until we create true community within that space that we can finally feel seen, and that those constructs of competitiveness that you were sort of mentioning earlier can really fall away. I was so fortunate to personally in my path end up in an all-girls high school, not because of anything, but by virtue of being a bad kid. And my parents were like, this is the last straw. You're not, the nuns are going to whip you into shape. We were not Catholic. I ended up in this school in complete defiance. And by the time I left school, I had completely transformed, because the experience of being with other women transformed to the point where I chose then to go to an all women's undergrad. And so I spent about a decade in all female schooling. And the gift of being in women's space is unbelievable. This is part of my passion now, is to provide that for other women. We need that to rest in, to be seen, and to be validated in our experience in ways that we can't even comprehend in operating in the day-to-day.
Mm. There's actually data that shows that females thrive in all female environments. Elementary schools, the girls tend to not speak up as much when there's boys present, yet boys tend to thrive in environments where there's girls. And this is shown in the boardroom, it's shown through education, and of course in families, family environments, that men tend to thrive when they're married. Women very often don't. They work more, they do more, and so I'm so glad that you brought that up, Olive. Jamie, what are your thoughts on that, about how women tend to withdraw and to heal as opposed to stepping into community, and how we need to shift that paradox?
Yeah, well, again, just giving space. But Olive, you just made me realize that I want to send my 5-year-old to an all-girls school. I've been thinking about it, and now it's done. I'm gonna figure that. No, but yes, like and I've seen, especially when I co-hosted a rest retreat this past year, which was one of my dreams, to create a retreat. And it's all women, mostly silent. But what we realized was that, again, giving these women space, like giving them space where we said, look, you can do, we're all going to offer yoga, Reiki, we're going to offer any of this stuff. But if you want to lay down for 8 hours, you lay down. There is no, and my best friend who got to come, she told me that kind of thing that we just preached over and over opened her up so much, because she said, no one's really said to me, you can do anything you want. Like, we are giving these things to you, but you listen to your body, you listen to yourself, you listen to your intuition. If you're in the middle of yoga, we laughed about this. If you're in the middle of yoga and your body's like, lay down, it's like, lay down. No one's going to judge that, because we've just never been given this space. It is that we have to be everything. We have to be doing it all. We have to be taking care of it all, and not finding that time for ourselves. And I think that in these community, in some kind of gathering, in some kind of circle, in some kind of women's group, when you're together and you've taken down all those walls, you take out the voice of everyone else, then you allow yourself to open up, and you do open yourself up more than you even thought was possible, because you look around and you're like, I am in a safe space. And then the stuff bubbles up and it comes to the surface. And that's why I think we need more and more and more of these spaces. I've been quoting this a lot, Thich Nhat Hanh, peace in oneself, peace in the world, because I just feel like this world is being run by a lot of trauma-informed people, like a lot of hurting people. So if we are taking the time right now, and that's not an individual, it's that when you fill your cup, you can fill other people's cups. When you're completely depleted, you don't have anything to do that with. So it is, and I do think we fill our cups in these circles. I do have to, I don't know if any of you know the play The Doll's House. Have you heard of A Doll's House? So it was Ibsen, and it was written in the 1800s. And this woman, the main character, she, at the end of the play, she leaves her husband, which was a huge, and her children, like huge thing. My friend there's a Doll's House 2, and it tells the story of the woman. And my friend performed it here in Cleveland. And there's a monologue at the end where she talks about that she kind of went into the woods, and it took her 2 years, she said, and this is going to make me cry, but to hear her own voice. Like we have the voices of our fathers, all of these voices that we don't know what's ours until we get into these spaces with other people, until we get alone time. And that's what I think we're really trying to do right now is like, wait, whose voice is that? I don't know if that's my voice. Let me take in let me do this healing. Let me do this yoga. Let me do these things to find my own voice.
I think your retreat is so needed. I mean, what radical work to have rest retreats and to give women the opportunity to listen to that still small voice inside of them. That's at the heart of all of this practice, I feel, finding that quiet so that we can tune in.
Do you find that when you have the women that can choose, do you find that they struggle to make a choice? Does it take them a little time to be like, I know what I want to do? Or are they like, I don't know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? How does that play out?
Yeah, I think at first because they haven't been given that. I think they're like, really? Can I really not
Mhm.
do these things if I don't want to do them? And by the middle of it, they're making those choices. They're at first they're all at the things, and then by the middle there, and we do give a large section of nap time in the middle. But yeah, but I do think it takes a little while because I think they're just like, wait a second, if I'm here to do these things, I should do them. And then they're just like, no, I want to rest right now, or I do want to do this forest bathing, but yeah, I think it takes a little bit because they've never been given that permission.
Well, and I know from, using myself as an example, there are times when I'm like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And like, can I end that friendship? Is that allowed? Like, am I allowed to say no, that I don't want to go to dinner with these people? Like you kind of like, and it's not, cognitively, it. Like, of course I can say no. I'm a grown woman, right? But then you're like, well, what will they think? Or how will this, what will be the repercussions and that type of thing. And so we play the what if game a lot instead of just, like you said, checking in and hearing our own voice. And my voice, it's in my body. That's
Yeah.
how I hear my voice. If I run, do I want to do this? Do I want to, you know, do this program? Let me check in with my body, and my body will tell me. It will feel repulsion. Do I want to get to know this person better? Meh. My body's saying no, that type of thing, or yes, and so checking in with our bodies, and until we can get still, we can't hear our own thoughts and we can't feel our own bodies. Yeah.
That's so great, Lisa. I mean, what a beautiful thing to be able to do is, and I think that's what so many of us are trying to do is get back in tune with this. We're so separated from it.
I love how both of you saw what you needed. And
Mm,
then you said, you didn't just lay down in despair. It's not here. Boo-hoo, what do I do? You're like, I will create it.
yeah.
Right? I mean, you're like, now let's make something. If it's not there, I'm a writer. Like, if there's a story I want to read, I write it. If it's not out there, because that's our innate gift. We take an idea, a vision, or a feeling, and then we can, it's like magic, turn it into something tangible. That is, what power is that? Now, you both have mentioned that you have daughters, and I am very curious. What is it like raising a daughter in the world today? What are you excited about? What are you fearful about? And how are you parenting that's different than the way that you were parented as a daughter?
Can I jump in? I think it's what Olive was talking about earlier. I think how I'm parenting, how I'm trying to parent, and it's really hard, is allowing her to be fully self-expressed.
Mm.
and she leads with anger. This girl leads with where she gets really frustrated. She has a lot of shame, which you and I don't know where that comes from, but it's wanting to do things perfectly. It's wanting, and I'm the first one in the family to be like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. So it's something in her, but trying to give her the space. Like right now, she's trying to read and she has friends that can read and so we're really trying to allow that space of letting her feel her feelings when she gets frustrated, knowing that and of course would it be easier if she didn't blow up? Would it of course be easier if she was just like la 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 but she's not. And there was one point she asked, we say a lot that, she's the perfect daughter for us. And we have these little books about affirmations and all that. And I always say, you were the one we were waiting for. And that we all chose all of this. And she said, did you choose my hair? Yes. Did you choose? And then she said, did you choose my anger? And I said, you know what? Yes, because I want you to be fully self-expressed. And she doesn't know what that means yet, but trying to do that. And I think that's one of the hardest things is letting these little girls, and Olive, I don't know if you have the same experience, but letting her feel these big feelings wherever they happen in Sky Zone and wherever they happen, and just saying like, this is who she is, and we're trying to really have her work in her body. And she said she feels like her heart will explode. And so now I'm trying to put my hand on her heart or even on my heart just to say, you can have those feelings. Let's kind of get them processed. But I hope that we're at a much better place, even if it looks like we're going backwards, that girls will be taking charge, because I think we do we need something different and a new path. And I hope our girls will be the ones leading that.
Wow, it's interesting. I just had a client yesterday that was sharing that she can't feel anger. And she doesn't know how to express it. She can't feel it. She's not even 100% sure what it feels like. And that's also a struggle that I have. I'm not real familiar with anger. Like I feel frustration. And for a long time, I thought frustration was the anger that everyone was talking about. But I also struggle with having that expression. And so I'm so happy that you brought that up. And Olive, please share your journey as a mother of daughters and your insights on anger, because I'm very curious. I think you have something to say about that.
Jamie, I also had a baby during the pandemic. So I really feel everything that you said about that. And I just wanted to point out also the beauty in the way that you alchemized that experience, kind of what Lisa highlighted, that was not a point of victimization for you, but that you turned that into gold for other women. And I mean, I would hope that I'm parenting in a way that's going to serve the girls and set them up for success. It's also so difficult to know what that is because things are changing so quickly. And so what you touched on, Jamie, around allowing them to be fully expressed, I mean, that's so powerful. I have in my mind this idea that all feelings are okay, not all behaviors are okay, right? And we're always working on how to fully express in a way that honors our feeling and our emotion whilst not causing harm to others. And a lot of that for me in my parenting style comes down to co-regulation and energetic entrainment. And so the best thing that I found that I can do as a mother in my home is to tend to myself first and foremost. And that means for me getting up way earlier than they do, and doing my practices and just trying to be as grounded as I can be, so that when those big feelings come through, I do not react and respond, right? And I teach them things like, you're having huge, when it gets huge, having a break with your own feelings is a tool to develop resilience. And we try to discern that as well. And so I don't know the answer of how to raise them in these times in a way that's right for these times. But I do know that raising my kids, my girls, my daughters, with emotional intelligence and the tools to regulate their system in a healthy way that allows for their full experience is not the way that I was raised fully. And that, Lisa, you said something so beautiful also about allowing women to lead, right, in the future. And I think about this idea that's been running through the thread of this conversation of what matriarchy really is. And it is, by definition, child-centered. And that doesn't mean that you have to have children. It means that you are thinking about our interconnectedness and our future. And so even this question is just really powerful. And allowing matriarchy to come forward is what is needed, because we are headed along this path of deep isolation and emotional repression and all of the things that we're seeing, traumatized individuals leading the way, point to deeper practices of connectivity and compassion for ourselves and compassion for others, I think is a key component of that actual practice of allowing ourselves to feel ourselves fully so that we can feel the other fully, and allowing for the full spectrum of that experience.
The idea that we are allowed to implies that there is someone with their hand on the gate to open or close it. And I think as the collective, as women, as females, the divine feminine, we no longer need to be outsourcing that to others. We are as powerful, and we need to step into that power and not wait for permission to do it. Anyone who gives you the right to something, they feel that they have the right to take it away. We women were given the vote, as opposed to we should have always have had it. A wrong was righted when women were allowed a voice. Yet to them, it's like, here's this gift we're offering you, right? Because you said you want it, we're going to quiet you, and here you go. Yeah, I think it's that feeling of it's no longer allowed. We are taking our power. We are stepping into it. And if you don't like it, you're going to have to get off our path. You can go somewhere else and do something else because we're taking it. And I think raising that next generation of girls feel their anger, because we feel anger when a boundary has been overstepped, right? If we can tap into that anger and use it in a way to make change, I think that's when we're going to start seeing this shift. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wanted to, because you asked me specifically about anger and I dropped that. I wanted to speak about that also. Jamie, you mentioned Thich Nhat Hanh earlier. He has a beautiful book around anger. It's called Wisdom for Cooling the Flames.
Mm.
And one of the things that he describes is anger there as a metaphor as fire, right? Fire, when used skillfully, is incredibly powerful. And so cultivating the ability to discern anger in a way that is harmful and destructive, and at times that's needed. But to be able to use it and wield it the most powerfully, I think we have to cultivate a relationship with it that allows us to use it in a discerning, skillful way, knowing when to kick up the flames and knowing when to cool the flames. And that requires, again, sitting with it. And so being able to draw it up is utmost he, in that book, also describes the metaphor of the baby anger, that when anger is present, it's like the baby is crying, and it is the first thing that needs to be tended to. And too often when we feel anger, we don't tend to it. We shy away from it as women. We don't sit with it. We don't know how to work with it. We don't become familiar with it. But actually taking that time when anger arises and really listening, it has a lot to say. But we can then utilize it as a huge catalyst for change. And when we talk about stepping into our power, it requires a level of audacity that we don't have in our examples of. Most of the time we're trained out of our audacity and our voice. And so this is where the practice comes in. This is where Jamie's rest retreats come in. And this is where my practice comes in, taking the time to listen to the internal voice. When you really practice taking that time in stillness and quiet daily, that becomes a voice you cannot ignore. That becomes a raging fire that you must pay attention to and learn how to wield. We can't sit with ourselves and listen to ourselves truly and still ignore that voice. There comes a point where it's in a radical awakening, and it's time to step up. And so creating these spaces of community and creating these spaces for ourselves is the way forward, I think, for change in the world. I really do think that this ripples out in a really powerful way.
It was so beautifully put. The only way that we can unlock these muted voices is by using them, whether it's verbally, through written word, through art. It's the only way that we're going to build that muscle. So what about you two? Are you able to, after all the work that you've been doing, able to speak up? And I mean, you both have a very, like I said before we started, your throat chakras are very clear. So you speak eloquently. What has been your journey about starting to use your own voice?
For me, just gaining this confidence, knowing that the world needs it, and just believing that the world needs my voice. And that took me a long time. But now it's just like I don't know, with everything happening and just saying, you know what? I believe my voice is needed and I'm going to use it. And then having people around that support that, having the community, being able to create that community.
Do you feel a responsibility as a mother to model that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like creating my events and some of the things I've been doing recently was hard on our family a little bit just because she wanted my time. And she came to the event, and her name's Brea. She did want me to say hi to her on this podcast. Hi, Brea.
Hi, Brea.
But that Brea and my husband Paul really supported me in that event, and she helped the kids, and so seeing her as part of that and seeing a community of generations together and cultures together with joy and creating together. Yeah, that's how I want her to grow up.
I have a real quick story for Brea, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that she was learning how to read, and sometimes it can be frustrating. When I was her age, I was so frustrated and I struggled to learn how to read. And so I went to a tutor, and I remember when it unlocked for me. And today I write books.
Oh, that's her dream. She wants to
There
write books. Yeah.
you go. So tell her just to keep working on it. It's all going to come together. And one day she'll be amazed that she couldn't do it.
Yes.
Okay. And Olive, what about you? When did you unlock your voice?
I mean, this has been a lifelong path, but I will say that what I have learned in my own life and also in the lives of my clients is that you never know how your truth is going to land. We make a lot of assumptions about how it's going to be received or what possible consequences could come. of us speaking up from our knowing. And often I think that the mind can get in the way of the heart in that situation. And that the most important thing is that we do express what is true to us. This is why we're all here. We're all here with our personal purpose of expressing our authenticity. And things that we may think would land in a way that is going to cause harm or cause people to turn away from us, well, that's really assuming a lot about the weakness of that relationship or the power of our truth. And even if it feels incredibly difficult or frightening, not honoring ourselves or our truth or what we have to say ultimately does us more harm and also destroys the integrity of the relationship that we're in, whether that's a personal relationship or a communal relationship. And so I just really continue to encourage women to sit with their practice of listening to their voice to the point where they have no choice but to speak their truth. And lately, I've been really considering the power of no and the sacred no, and really, really embodying this ethos that no is the most magnetic word. And it's been incredible for me in my own life as of late. And I've watched women begin to embrace their own sacred no. And the power of that word is, I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. When you are not aligned with a thing and you continue to say yes to that thing, you're only doing yourself and your own life force a disservice, your own spirit, your own soul. And so I would just encourage people to really practice. If it's a no, pay attention. Maybe pay really careful attention to all of the ways throughout the day that you say yes in subtle ways when you don't mean a yes. I've even begun to, as a little experiment, take notes of all of the small ways I might compensate for what I think or assume are other people's feelings, or wiggle out of a situation, or maybe just say yes to the thing when I really don't want the thing, even when it comes down to food. And it's amazing how many times we personally give away our power throughout the day, even. And so really just beginning to pay attention to what is my truth, what wants to be expressed in this moment. Often, I have found more often than not in this exercise of speaking my truth, and I'm not saying go willy-nilly, because there's unregulated truth and there's, destructive truth. This is also comes hand in hand with tending to yourself and regulating your system and knowing your wisdom and cultivating that. But when you are grounded and you do know a thing and you say that thing, more often than not, it has incredible beneficial impact on those around us. Because the ask often becomes that the other people in our lives, the other relationships or contracts that we have, then become recalibrated to what is needed in that moment. That's an ask for that other person or that community to grow and to respond to the truth. If each of us as women all spoke up about what our experience is and what our truth is in this moment, society and those around us would have no choice but to recalibrate to what our sacred truth is. And so imagine the impact if we were all grounded in this way with what it is that we need and require to be in these systems. Don't compromise yourself. Don't compromise what you know. Give yourself the space to listen in Jamie's rest retreats and these practices, and move from that place. You won't be able to help it. The voice will become so clear.
I did something similar, and I started observing when I was saying yes to things that it was actually affecting my bank account.
Yeah.
That's how powerful it is. It will you will start feeling almost like energetically constipated, if you will. That's what it feels like in your body, and it ripples out your bank account, your friendships, into everything in your life, your love life, everything. And so I think being an observer of yourself, there's power in that. There's knowledge We think that because we live in this body that we know what we're really doing. Oh, there's a whole cosmos in here going on. So I love that you have been on the observing path as well.
I love that you've made the connection between discernment and your bank account. It's so incredibly true. I've seen that over and over and over again. I just this week said no to several things and received a ton of mailbox money that I didn't even know was out there. I also just last week had a client who's really starting to tune into her relationship with her daughter and her body's needs, saying no to this investor that was calling and demanding her time. She said no, she took the pause. She ended up tripling her investment opportunity by honoring her sacred no. I mean, it happens. I've seen this is so juicy. I love it. Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is I also noticed that I was saying a lot of no's because I thought I was supposed to, because they weren't big projects or didn't have a big dollar sign on it. And so I was saying no. And every time I said that no, it felt wrong. But I thought, well, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to. And I realized that when I started saying yes to things that excited me, even if they didn't have a big dollar sign on it, my income increased because my energy was putting that out there. So yeah, I think it goes, we don't always have to do the no. Sometimes saying yes is also very powerful to unlock that as well. What about you, Jamie? Have you seen that correlation?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, just even in my path as a producer, really stuck to jumping onto projects that, yeah, probably didn't have a lot of dollar signs, but had a lot of meaning. And so that meaning, and that's how I got then the next job that was the big dollar sign. So really was able to tune into that early on in my producing career, is like, let me jump onto these projects that are meaningful, and I trust that it's going to lead me to the next project that will help my career. But yeah, and I've had a couple of things lately that were big no's and jumped into them, then said no and had to jump out. But I'm listening to my body, and had I not been on this path or had this new kind of tune in antenna, would have stayed because I felt like I should stay in it because I said yes and I don't want to quit, and then but just realized nope, this is not aligning. And a lot of learning my being a projector and realizing that there are certain things I don't do like everybody else, and knowing myself. So much comes back to just knowing and honoring yourself, but you can't get there without trying, without being in these supportive communities, without having conversations like this, without having these modalities or these things that really bring you back to yourself.
Yeah, I completely. Also, just want to say that's not, I think, Lisa, you've brought up such a beautiful point about the connection between energy and money, as money is an expression of energy. But that's not to say that there's magical thinking. And if you start saying, no, all this money is going to flow, but it is that there is a relationship. And I think also one of the things that you're naming, Jamie, and also Lisa, is the complexity of all of the levels of experience that we have. You keep referring to your bodies and how your body holds this wisdom and the relationship between body and emotion and energy. And I think it's so beautiful that we're even speaking in these ways. I just wanted to highlight that this has not been a part of the conversation when we were growing up, even, but our ability to expand, I was talking about that level of awareness that we are used to operating within. The way that this conversation is flowing is really illustrating for me that we're even expanding our experience from the time that we were children to now, and to incorporate the conversation around energy or the body or emotion in these ways that feel really, it's very inspiring. It's much more of a holistic experience that I think can really only serve us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the more we use the language and we explain it, people are like, oh, I do that. I didn't know there was a word for it. I didn't realize that I was doing something, but I always check in with my gut. As an example, people will say, well, I checked in with my gut, right? About intuition. It's like, that's intuition. That's what we've been doing our entire life.
Thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation with the two of you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit with two incredible women. I just, it lights me up to be able to share in this way. This is what we do, right? So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh,
It does give me hope that Olive is out there doing her thing, and Lisa, you're out there doing your thing. It gives me hope for my daughter. We are on a new path. We are on an inspired path.
well, thank you both so much. Thank you for listening. Go ahead and make sure to like and subscribe and follow Olive and Jamie on their platforms and check out their websites and their offerings. And we will see you next time on the Inspired Path.